Welcome back. If you guys could take a seat, we'll get started. I'm happy to introduce two presenters, and one of the things they'll talk about is some really very interesting research that we concluded earlier this year. So I'm pleased to introduce Bruce Wedderburn and Mike Esterday from Integrity Solutions. Bruce Wedderburn is Chief Sales Officer at Integrity Solutions. He has over 20 years of global experience in the sales performance improvement industry, building, coaching, and directing sales teams and distribution channels. He's joined by his colleague, Mike Esterday, who is Partner and Chief Executive Officer at Integrity. Integrity, by the way, is a firm that focuses on performance improvement and developing sales and service teams. Over the past 35 years, Mike has experienced a wide variety of success in sales, management, and in training positions. He's been Integrity Solutions CEO since 2011. We're pleased to have both Mike and Bruce with us today. Please help me in welcoming them to the stage. Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah. Appreciate that. Good morning, everybody. We know you had a choice of breakout sessions to go to. Thank you very much for coming to this one. My name is Bruce Wedderburn. I'm Chief Sales Officer at Integrity Solutions, introducing our Chief Executive Officer, Mike Esterday. Integrity Solutions, we've been in the business for 47 years at helping organizations win more customers, keep more customers, and grow their revenue base. Doing so through excellence in sales, customer service, and the subject we're going to talk about today, which is coaching. And when it comes to coaching, it is one of the buzzwords, one of the initiatives that organizations are frequently coming back to. In fact, what you see on the screen is just a visual image of what this word coaching means to so many different organizations. You stop 50 people out there on the street and you say, what is coaching in a business sense? You're liable to get 50 different answers. In the previous sessions we heard this morning, you heard some various different answers of what coaching is as well. So we're interested in getting your feedback. We're speaking in a number of conferences, we're doing webinars, we're doing online surveys, we're speaking to our customer base about what is this thing called coaching and how can organizations use it as a strategic tool to shift performance, the bell curve of their performance in a positive direction. So we'll be looking to get some of your input and your thoughts as we go through the session today. Here's one way to start off. We're just going to do a quick survey, and this is going to be a very easy one for you. It's going to be just a show of hands. I'd like you to write these three numbers down. Please, if you can grab a piece of pen and paper, write them down and write them in big numbers so you can see them easily. Write number 84. Underneath that, please write the number 26. Underneath that, please write the number 20. So people are just getting their pen. What was that again? 84, 26, 20. And I'm behind, and next to each one of those, please write a percentage sign. So it's 84%, 26%, 20. What's the significance of those numbers? We're going to come to that in a moment. Here's our first show of hands. This is going to be our survey. I want you to think about, you're in sales management, sales leadership here. I want you to think about the top performing sales reps, sales people in your organization, or top performing salespeople that you know. These are the people who achieve or blow past their quota every single year. Year after year, consistent sales performers. What percentage of their success in sales is due to either one of two things? A, it is their superior product knowledge and their selling skills. Or B, it's because of their attitude, their achievement drive, their drive to achieve, their self-belief, they're passionate about what they do. Which one of those drives the year after year success of those top performers? A, their product knowledge or their selling skills, or B, their attitude, their achievement drive, their self-belief. So with this quick show of hands, who would pick A, the top performers year after year are because of they've got superior product knowledge, selling skills? Okay, I don't see a hand just yet. What about B? Everyone has to vote. B. So we've got pretty universal acceptance on this, that success in sales on a consistent basis relies more on the attitudinal side. You're thinking, well, what's that got to do with the numbers we wrote down? Well, let's take a look at that. We did a survey which asked a very similar question with the Sales Management Association earlier this year. What is it that separates the consistent top performers from the average on a consistent basis? The first number, 84%, said that this thing called achievement drive, which is a catch-all phrase for the more attitudinal things. Attitude, drive to achieve, self-belief, passionate about what they sell. We call that achievement drive. That 84% of organizations said that achievement drive was equal to or more important than selling skills or product knowledge. Second question we ask is, well, if that's so important, how is your organization focused on training and coaching that subject of achievement drive? 26% of organizations said we do an effective job at training and coaching achievement drive. So an amazing gap between what organizations and sales leaders globally are saying is important and what they're actually doing about it. A huge delta. But the third number you've got there, well, what's the 20%? The 20% is those organizations that are effective, that do focus on achievement drive and develop that, are outperforming those organizations who are not effective on it by over 20 percentage points. That's measured by sales performance, that's measured by revenue. So one of the things we're going to talk about today in coaching is the whole purpose of coaching is really ultimately in a sales organization. Yes, it's to drive increases in employee engagement. Yes, it's to drive a greater percentage of people who stay, who we want to stay. Yes, it's to improve the relationship and the working relationship between the manager and the salesperson. All of those good things. But ultimately in a sales organization, it's to drive revenue performance. And that's what, when we're focusing on coaching today, that's the cold hard facts that we're going to be looking at. But we've just identified in this survey that we just did and the one we did with Sales Management Association, we identified that one of the areas that managers can be coaching to is this thing called achievement drive, the attitudinal things. It's also not only the most overlooked area in training, it's the most overlooked area in managers coaching. Because when you think about it, you're going to hear session after session here or anywhere you go online, you think, what is coaching? It's all about, it's the pipeline, you've got to coach about the deal. You've got to make sure you've got enough deals in the pipeline and they're the right size and they're moving at the right velocity. And we've got to coach around specific selling skills or this particular sales methodology. We heard this morning in Neff and Michelle's excellent presentation about, it's not about how to, it's about when to. It's not about how the methodology, but when do you teach certain methodologies and when do you use them? And we agree with both of those. But the one thing that's often overlooked is why to. Why are your top performers year after year? Why are they top performers? You say, well, it's because they're driven. They'll do whatever it takes. They will go the extra mile. Yeah, but why do they do those things? And if we can tap into that, because that's in every one of the people in your organization has that same motivation, that same achievement drive, but it's sitting dormant in many times. And if coaching is one way to unlock that, to free that, that's what we're going to be focused on. How do we develop our people to help them realize the potential that we see in them, the potential that we hired them for in the organization in the first place? You may not have trouble seeing this, so we're not going to spend too much time on it. But the Sales Management Association research that said that organizations say sales coaching is the #1 driver of impact of sales performance. So therefore, with all the things we've talked about, companies must be doing a lot of it, right? So another Sales Management Association supporting sales coaching research at 77% of organizations saying we're just not doing enough of it. Now, if 77% of organizations are saying we're not doing enough of it, I wonder what percentage of that 77 are not doing it at all? And this data, by the way, came from management. If we were to go out and survey salespeople, I wonder what their percentages would be. But there's 15% are doing it just right and 8% are doing it too much. It must be effective then. We're looking now at 55% of organizations saying, look, we're doing coaching, but it's just not effective. It's not moving the needle. It's not achieving the results we want. 30% are saying, well, it's somewhat. And we've got a 14% of organizations who are coaching are saying that it's effective. So some things are not necessarily lining up here. And I'm sure you may have experienced some parts of that in your organization. So here's our first exercise. And this is why we ask many of you to huddle up together. What you'll have there on your document, what you have in front of you is given to you is this document. We're really interested, we're passionate about this thing called coaching. We're really interested in getting your feedback about all things coaching. And we're going to be compiling a report based on your answers here, and we're going to be comparing the answers, your answers from this event to the general population where we're asking this very similar question. So it'll be interesting to see what the contrast would be. We're going to ask you to put your name and information at the bottom up. This is not an anonymous survey. Too much that's out there on the web is all this anonymous survey, and people can write and put anything down there. This is not anonymous, but as a way of saying thank you for helping us gather some additional research, produce this report. Your answers will not be reported with your name. Your answers will be reported anonymously in the report, so don't worry about that. But as a thank you, we at Integrity Solutions are going to make a $200 donation in your name to the charity of your choice. We're going to be doing a drawing at the end of this session. So one of the people in this room, you may want to give to the hurricane victims in Puerto Rico. You may want to give to St. Jude's Children's Hospital. Your choice, whatever it is, we'll be donating $200 in your name to the charity of your choice, and we'll contact you later to find out what that charity is. So with the person next to you or behind you, we're going to ask you to find a buddy. So if you've just walked in, Helen, if you could come and just join this gentleman, Randy, up front here, you're going to be Randy's buddy there. So timing is everything, right? So if you could please just take a couple of minutes, and there's 2 questions there at the top, only the top 2 questions. We talked about the discrepancy between what organizations know they need to be doing and should be doing regarding coaching. It is a popular buzzword now. It is the thing that organizations are gravitating towards. Everyone knows they should be doing it. We've seen the evidence, and we saw it from the show of hands. Not everyone is really coaching around the right areas or doing enough of it. Why is that? Why is that happening? So with your partner, I want you to discuss that. And also talk about this multiple choice question. Please circle one of the ones beneath that. Please take 2 minutes. If you've got any questions, I'd like to introduce my team member, Ron King, who's walking around here. Ron, wave your hands. Please raise your hand. Ron will help you out. We have our VP of Marketing, Will Milano, who is up the back of the room as well. Will can also help you. 2 minutes on the clock. Please begin. And just take about another 20 seconds with your partner. Please, if you could both write down your answers. Legibility is critical here. Other people will be reading this. And if you've got the multiple choice, please go ahead and circle the multiple choice as well. One thing about the multiple choice question where you've got a circle, we're not asking you to rate yourself. We're asking you to look across your organization at the other managers, not necessarily yourself. All right, thank you for doing that. Probably not enough time, right? But here's a chance now, if I could please. Well, I was just listening to some snippets of conversations going around, and it seems to be amongst those of us who are sales leaders, this is a common question. You know, we know we need to be coaching, but why aren't we doing more of it? Now, we ask you to think about not necessarily yourself, but looking across everyone, all the management team in your organization. If your organization is small, then maybe include yourself, but look across other companies as well. Just get a sense of what's happening in the broader audience. So who would like to just share some of the things you talked about with your partner? Let's just hear some inputs. Why isn't coaching happening, do you think?
Where coaching might need to happen might not show itself as a metric, so you don't necessarily know. Someone could have a very healthy pipeline but needs coaching in another area that doesn't show itself.
Someone may already have a healthy pipeline, but it's not the coaching, it's not showing itself in another area. It's not as visible. Okay, thank you. Yes, please.
So in my organization, it's basically the resources changes. Like sometimes you already have a training at this time, but later on you have new salesperson, you have new people coming in, and then it's very difficult.
Because you have turnover, new salespeople coming in, it can be a challenge. Okay, thank you for that. Let's get up the back there. Yes, shout it out, nice and loud. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's a different discipline. The comment was that sometimes, and we heard this as statistic earlier, over 70% of sales managers came from the sales rep ranks and were promoted up. They were excellent sales reps, but they've never really been taught how to coach. And there's a lot of different theories and principles. I said earlier, if you stop 50 managers and said, what is coaching and how do you do it? You may get 50 different nuances or even completely different answers of what that is. Never been taught actually how to do that. Good points. We're going to continue this discussion with your partner. You're not finished with that person just yet. But so go ahead and just with your partner say, hey, thanks for having a conversation with me. We're going to talk about this thing called coaching. We're going to get your feedback on this a little bit later because yesterday and last night I was talking to a bunch of people outside, and I've done this in other group meetings as well when we've facilitated things like this. We said, you know, if coaching is happening in your organization, what would you see? And the various responses were where we'd see the manager and the sales rep collaborating on the pipeline. We'd see the manager and the sales rep talking about deals. We'd see the manager and the sales rep would be working together to help develop the salesperson's goals and be more important. Every single one of them, there are various responses, but all of them had one thing in common. And that was, it was all about the conversation between the manager and the salesperson. How do we plan for coaching? Do we capture those coaching moments, so those moments in time on the fly, or do we have the formal coaching session? Are our coaching sessions short, or as Lev mentioned this morning, are they more in-depth? But it's all about that conversation, and how can we get better outcomes from that conversation for the salesperson and for the manager? And if it's not the salesperson, maybe it's the sales assistant, but we'll just call it salesperson for the sake of today. But if that's the case, then why is sales coaching not happening to the degree that we want to see it in every other organization. And we see that there are two other conversations that are just as critical as this. We have a gentleman in my neighborhood who's the owner of a lawn landscaping company. It's his third business, and he's looking to grow this business, and he wants to grow it to be about a $9 million business, and he wants to sell it. And at the moment, it's about a $1 million mark, and he's grown it pretty successfully in the period of about 2 years, but it's plateaued off for the last 4 years, and he can't seem to grow it above $1 million. Every one of his other two organizations previously that he led, they've reached $1 million as well, and never grew beyond that. And at a neighborhood Halloween function last Halloween, over a couple of ciders, we were talking about his business, and he mentioned, and he opened up to me and he said, I just can't see myself as anything more than the owner and manager and leader of a $1 million business. Is that going to affect the decisions he makes? Is that going to affect how he talks and coaches his people? Is that going to affect how he talks and coaches his customers? Is that going to affect the opportunities that he not only misses out on, he doesn't even notice? The second coaching conversation, which is the most overlooked one, is the conversation that the coach has with themselves. Do they have an internal view? What's their attitude towards coaching? Building belief in their abilities. We took a vote earlier and we had unanimous agreement that the attitudinal aspect of selling, the achievement drive, the self-belief in their abilities is what differentiates your excellent sales performance from your average sales performers. I ask you the question, could that be true of your managers as well? So if we're looking to develop coaching, the critical aspect is, are these two conversations aligned? Are they congruent, or is one competing against the other? There was a third conversation too, and that's the conversation that the manager has with her coach, with his coach, or with their greater organization. So many managers, and we're working with an organization now that has over 1,100 managers, and one of the consistent things that we hear in this financial services firm is the metrics that those sales managers are being measured on conflict with the coaching that they're trying to do with their people, and the managers are caught in the middle. So are they getting support from their manager and from the organization? That is an entirely different subject we could spend another hour on. We don't have time too much for that today. We're going to focus on number 1 and number 2 because they're really the critical ones. So first one, let's take a look at the conversation that we have with our salespeople. What does that sound like? And how can we maximize that? What are some best practices there?
Thank you, Bruce. As we think about this, let me ask you a question. When you think of the term coach, what do you think of in today's society? Sports? Yeah, we think about sports. Monday Night Football, baseball, whatever, we think about a coach that's in sports. But if you think about years ago, I was in Germany a number of years ago, and I was going to a museum. And in that museum was this beautiful gold-covered coach. Years ago, a coach was a vehicle that helped important people get from where they are to where they want to be. So if we think about that, that's really what a coach is doing as it relates to today. Coaches are really helping very important people, your salespeople, get where they want to be. But to do that, we need a mindset shift. We need a shift from the current level, believing they can only perform at this level, to believing they can perform at a higher level. That we can build our people and they can be accountable to higher goals. It's a mindset shift from monthly performance reviews or appraisals or annual appraisals, if that sometimes, to regular ongoing coaching. And not just coaching that's planned, but coaching moments. Maybe it's walking by their cubicle, maybe it's on the phone, maybe it's out riding with them. But those coaching moments that can have such an impact on their productivity. And finally, it's not just discussing numbers and details and deals. It's a mindset shift to coaching the whole person and to coaching to what will really ignite their passion, as Bruce said, their why. So what we want to do is share with you a couple of practical ideas. What are some things you can actually do to help that sales manager coach and have that conversation with his or her salespeople? I find that there's a lot of salespeople, a lot of managers out there that don't know what to do. They're successful salespeople. They're going out there, now they're becoming a manager. They just don't know the process of how to do that. So I'd like to share with you a process that's worked in over 100 countries, all kinds of industries, no matter if it's a big company, small company. And it's a process that gives you the flexibility that they can coach to the person, coach to the deal, whatever it might be. This process has several steps. And the first one is to prepare. It's amazing how many managers I see that shoot from the hip, just like a lot of salespeople shoot from the hip. And they show up and they're really not prepared for that particular person and coach to that person and not just in general. It's the environment. It's a trust environment. Have I thought about not just the numbers, but why that person is doing what they're doing? In the 5 steps, number 1 is ask. To ask questions about not just their goals in business, but their personal goals. Why do they want to be in this business? What do they want to accomplish? What do they want to prove? Is it something to themselves? Is it something to their spouse? Is it something to someone else? My first sales job, I had a very good manager who knew that it wasn't the sales I was making. I wanted to prove something to my father. My father was a farmer. My mother was a first grade teacher. They didn't have a great view of selling. They weren't that proud that their son was out in a sales job. So I wanted to show my dad that I could make it and I could be a top salesperson. I could do well at that. And that manager was smart because he knew how to drive that passion in me, that that's what I really wanted. It wasn't the numbers. So ask. Ask questions about them, their personal goals, and also their professional goals. But then secondly, listen. Listen to words, tone of voice, body language. What are they really saying between the lines? How many times have you had a meeting with a manager and you thought something could be done to you instead of for you? The manager's going to beat you up. You didn't hit your numbers, didn't hit your quota, didn't have enough calls, weren't selling the right amount of product. What environment are you creating that's a safe environment so you can get to the truth? Well, the key things in selling is to have an environment where the customer can tell you what the real deal is. How hard is it sometimes to find out what the truth is, what the customer really wants, so you can show how you can fill those needs? Same thing with coaching. Have an environment so you can listen, so you can figure what the real deal is. So ask, listen, then third, finally, then coach. But don't coach 10 different things. I had a manager, my worst manager, when he rode with me the first day, I didn't know what it was going to be about. All I knew is he had a yellow pad and he took lots of notes all day long. He was just writing furiously, had lots of pages. At dinner that night, I found out that his idea of coaching was to tell me every single thing that I did wrong, give me about 50 things I ought to correct. Well, there are things we probably all need to correct, but what's maybe 1 or 2 things to coach to and put a plan in place to do that. Number 4 is to praise. It doesn't have to be there, it could be all the way throughout, but to praise people for specific things. And not just the numbers and details, but to praise for what's really important to them. And finally, then challenge. Step 5 is to challenge people to hit higher goals, that they can do more, to see more in people than they see in themselves, and set an environment where they believe that you believe they can hit that. And then finally, follow up. Follow up and hold them accountable for what they've committed to. So that's a simple 5-step process with preparation and follow-up that hopefully you can go back and implement with your people. I'd like to share, this is a picture of Bruce and me about 2 weeks ago up in Boston. And the gentleman in the middle is Adam Pustanek. And Adam's our distributor in Poland. And there's an interesting story we learned about Adam. His parents were world-class handball players. He wasn't very good at that, but they wanted to play a sport. And somehow they found out that he was really good at table tennis, ping pong. And he would practice 4 to 6 hours a day on ping pong. He got to be really, really good. In fact, he was so good that he could beat everybody in Europe during practice. But he couldn't beat him in the tournament. And finally, he came back from one tournament and said, I'm quitting. I'm not going to do this anymore. And he said, I can't win tournaments. That was his belief. But he had a coach that believed he could because he was always beating him in practice. And so he believed in him and he showed him how to build that belief, not just the skill, he had the skill, but how to believe that he could win. And once he won the first time, he started winning all the time. He ended up being number 2 in Poland and number 5 in the top 5 in Europe because the coach helped him believe he could do it, not just have the skill. So let's talk a little bit about how we can shift the coaching conversation with ourselves as a manager. What are some things we can do to shift that mindset? And I'd like to share 5 circles with you, 5 dimensions to think about as we coach our managers. And the first one is view of coaching. What do people really think coaching is? If we could get inside your managers' heads, inside our heads, how would we define coaching? Is it just working on the deals, just working on the opportunities? Is it talking numbers and details? Is it correcting people all the time? Or is it building people? Is it seeing more in them than they see in themselves? Is it helping them hit those new goals, challenging them in the right way? Coaching can be such a noble profession. When your managers are the leverage point in the organization. And often, frankly, it's more about building the manager. It's more about building the manager as you train managers than it is about them building their people. Because as you build your managers, they'll build your people. So first of all is a view of coaching, to shift that to a positive coaching. Number 2 is view their abilities. Do your managers believe in their heart that they really can be successful managers? They might say, I was a great salesperson, but I'm not sure about this management stuff. Or maybe I was a good manager, but now the competition's popped up, or new products come out. We got a challenge that's tougher to deal with. So I'm not sure if I can do it. What happens between their ears has a great deal to do with their success. The third piece is their values. Hopefully you have managers who have honesty, do the right thing, have the right beliefs about their people. But these positive values of how they look at their people and how they want to build their people are picked up by others. I grew up on a farm, as I said, and I don't have a lot of unique theories, but one of my theories is on the farm, I learned that when you got in a pig pen or a cattle pen with some animals, they could sense whether you're afraid of them or not. You get around dogs or whatever, you can kind of a vibe that goes off. My theory is that if animals are that sensitive, people are too. And those managers are giving off a vibe of whether you really believe in that person or not. Fourth one is commitment to activities. Do the managers know what they need to be doing to be successful coaches? And secondly, are they willing to do it? It's not just knowing what to do. For example, that Ask, Listen, Coach, Praise challenge, or how to work through Salesforce coaching, or whatever it might be. It's not just knowing what to do. Are they willing to do it, even the tough stuff? And sometimes coaching to that achievement drive, that's a little softer. That's a little harder for them to deal with. We're not trying to make them psychologists, but it's tougher to deal with that than it is just the hard numbers. So it's commitment to activities. And finally, belief in people. Do they believe in their people? These managers are leaving their handprints on their people. I have 2 grown sons, and as I think about who I want them to work with, I want them to work with a manager that believes in them, that sees in them what I see in them, and to give them an opportunity to grow to their full potential. Most of the people you hired, I believe, you hired them because you thought they could be successful salespeople. Do your managers still believe they're successful, can be successful, or they've written them off? In between these circles, there are arrows, and arrows stand for gaps. A gap is a problem. You may have someone who's high valued, but their belief of coaching is to beat people up. And a manager one time, he told me in a very major company, he said, I'm not going to praise these people. They already know what they're doing right. I want to tell them what they're doing wrong so they can correct it. Well, that wasn't real good with some people's values. Maybe you've got a real commitment to coach people, but you don't believe in this person. That's going to come through and it's going to impact performance. So the goal is to bring these 5 into what we call congruence or alignment, so that you have a sales management team that clearly understands what coaching is and how it is building people. That they believe, I can do that. That's consistent with the kind of values that I exude. I'm going to commit to do that because I really believe in my people. When those gaps are brought together, it's kind of like if you took 5 quarters and taped them together and you could roll them down the table. They're in alignment, they're in congruence, things go better. Just like alignment of your car wheels. And that releases achievement drive. When your managers are congruent, when they are in alignment, they'll have more achievement drive to build their people. Now, what I'd like you to do, in the handout that Bruce gave you, they had the first 2 questions. The next one, though, is a rating. If you would take a moment and think about your organization's management team. Now, I'd like you to force rank these 5 dimensions, these 5 circles, and number 1 is the most effective in your organization. Number 5 is the least effective. Kind of looking across your management team, how would you rank them? 1 is the most effective and 5 is the least effective. Okay, almost have that?
Yeah, thank you for that, Mike. You can't have 2 number 1s or 5 number 5s for the more negative people out there. So 1 through 5. We're going to be, again, your name won't be associated to any of the comments or any of the numbers in the report that we're producing. That will be anonymous. So, you know, it's interesting, the one that Mike mentioned here, commitment to activities. One of the things when we've asked this question in other groups, why isn't coaching happening? One of the things we didn't hear today, you might have spoken about in your group and we didn't get to you, but one of the reasons is, it's time. We're just so busy, putting out fires, we're working 80 hours a week, overworked. Really? So my question is then, how committed to the activity of coaching is that person? Because when we have a not very positive view of coaching in our heads, we don't really believe our people are going to be successful. We don't even really believe I'm good at this. I was good at selling. I don't know what to do as a coach. My people look at me during coaching sessions and I'm thinking they're saying to themselves, really? You're coaching me? I've got this attitude. I don't want to do it. So I'm going to find any number of essential, important Salesforce reports and forecasting. Oh, my boss needs this information right away. So one of the questionings we always do about commitment to activities is really question this whole concept of time. And I was encouraged to hear that didn't come out when we did this previously. I want to build on one thing too about the conversation that managers have with themselves when this whole thing coaching. And I'm wondering if the 3 conversations we're talking about, your salespeople who are on the receiving end or collaborating with this coaching also have this. Every one of us has a certain number of beliefs, and if that X in the middle represents an individual, maybe it's us, maybe it's other people, we have all had experiences through our lives. We've all had comments from parents, from teachers, from maybe religious figures, from friends, from peers. We've had good experiences, bad experiences. We've done well, we've done poorly. Millions of experiences throughout our lives. And if we could put a circle for each one of those, a dot for each one, I doubt it would be a complete circle. But what we would have then is sort of an outline of our belief boundaries, the belief of who we are and what results and success we deserve to enjoy. And this is not a conscious decision. This is something that was usually given to us by the environment, by other people, and we've accepted it without questioning, and it's helped shape who we are and helped shape who your salespeople are. All sorts of beliefs. Here are some of them. These beliefs can be empowering. These beliefs can be disabling. These beliefs can be restricting, depending on what's between their ears and in their heart. So, what's possible for me to sell? What level of person can I call on? Each one of you has salespeople in your organization who are comfortable calling on this level of customer, but they will always find reasons why they can't get access to this level of customer. True? Everyone's got one of those people. And it's not necessarily they don't know what to say. They've had the training. They've been given the words. They've got the scripts. They've had the managers coach them on it, but it's still not happening. And it goes a lot deeper to the issues. Now, one of the points is, managers, we can start to coach this. Not that we're psychologists, but it's all around driving greater performance, because in our belief boundaries, every one of our actions, our feelings, behaviors, and our attitudes and our abilities are going to be governed within that. And our performance is consistent with our inner beliefs. The performance of your management team around coaching, the performance of your sales team around selling will be consistent, not to what they've been trained on, not to what they've been coached on, to what they believe in their heart and between their ears. And effective coaching has the ability to challenge that and help people start to take small steps and expand their belief boundaries, step in to try new things, do new activities, start to realize the potential that you saw in them when you hired them, maybe the potential they don't realize that they saw in themselves. One of the exercises that we do when we work with organizations around coaching is we ask everyone and the managers to think about a person in your life who saw more in you than you saw in yourself and helped you to higher performance. Who is that? And everyone has that. You've all got one of those people. Hopefully you've got more than one. As a coach, you can become that person to members of your team, not to everybody. Not everyone will want it, but a lot will, and most are not getting it. So when coaching salespeople, each one of your salespeople also has these two conversations. It's the conversation that your salespeople are having with their customers. 99% of training, 99% of coaching is all about working on ultimately on that conversation, because the quantity and the quality of those conversations will be the determining factor whether you're going to make your sales numbers this year. All of the technology, all of the training, all of that is contributing factors to the conversation when your salesperson sits down with that manager and the value they create in that exchange. Very little coaching is happening around what's happening between their ears, around helping them be aligned, helping these two conversations be aligned with your salespeople. It's happening with your best performing people. You raised your hand earlier and you said it. If we could take that and start to shift the bell curve of performance of your organization in a positive direction around some of these key areas, if we can just make a small change in some key areas, that's the power of coaching that is frequently overlooked in the rush to technology, in the rush to numbers, in the rush to forecast. All of those things will be better if we can help people unlock the conversation they have with themselves and the conversation with their people at the same time. So on your worksheet, you've got a question, and just chat about this with your partner for 30 seconds or so. Of the 3 conversations that we've talked about, I want you to think about your organization. Which of the 3 conversations are most important for your managers to develop when they're talking with their salespeople? Is it with themselves? Is it with their salespeople? Or is it with their coach? Do they need coaching support from their managers? All of them are important. We want you to circle the one that you feel, when looking to develop your management team and make them better than what they are now, which one would be the one that you would really want to focus on helping them develop? So please just talk about it. Exchange some ideas with your partner for 30 seconds. You may agree on this, you may disagree. One may choose A, one may choose B, whatever, one may choose C, whatever. But just verbalizing helps us think through things at a deeper level. Please take 30 seconds with your partner and chat about this one. Thank you. And once you've done that and you've circled, each one of you has circled something on your worksheet, please with your partner discuss the last question there on the sheet and jot down some ideas. What are the implications of some of the things that we've talked about today in terms of the content? You want to develop your management team. Has there been anything here that has got you to think maybe a little bit differently about your management team and how to develop their abilities? Maybe, maybe not. That's okay too. So please jot down, legibility is important on that. Please take an extra minute talking with your partner through that one. Thank you for that. Please go ahead and just jot down some ideas, each person. Legibility is important on this one.
Thank you for that discussion. Hopefully you can continue that after the break. As we wrap up, just a couple of tips of how to do this. If we think about changing behavior, it was said earlier this morning that when you walk out of training, typically we lose about 75–80% of it, very quickly. We all know that. We all leave with good intentions, and I've got a lot of manuals on my shelf that I meant to use, but I never did. Our goal is to obviously have training that's sustained, people use it, and actually gets results. So what we found is that clients of ours that do the best job of changing the behavior of their people do it over time. So a quick timeline of how they do that is they have some type of initial learning, typically face-to-face, or it could be through Adobe Connect, or could be some online pre-learning, but they're going to have some initial content that's learning. Number two, is it a multi-week structured environment to practice it? For example, we've got a group of 700 managers now working through a coaching process. And what they do is they learn the coaching process in the front end for that company. And then they get back together once a week for about an hour in groups of 5 to 8. And they're accountable to tell how they actually coach their people that week. So by coming back and telling real life stories of here's the problem I had, here's what I used to do, here's what I did now, here's how I listened to them, it's amazing what people learn from that peer sharing. Most behavior change studies say it takes about 21 to 32 days to form new behaviors. So about the third or fourth week, you start seeing some change. So we suggest about a 6 to 8 week period of time of weekly accountability to actually practice whatever it is, coaching, sales skills, or whatever. But then if you stop, just like a diet, it goes away. So to build it into the culture for ongoing reinforcement and measurement. So in any kind of training you do, if we could have the initial learning, 6 to 8 weeks of accountability of using it, and then ongoing reinforcement, it'll stick. A couple of tips at the end to expand the coaching skill set. If we're talking about the conversation with the salesperson, here's a few tips. Express a genuine desire to help that salesperson succeed. They need to really believe that you believe in them. Number two is to ask a lot of questions. One of the biggest things I've had managers come back and say that they need to do is shut up. You ask a question, shut up, and listen to what the person's saying. Maybe ask another follow-up question, just like you would with a customer. Find out what the real deal is. Number three, ask the salesperson to come up with their own ideas. Believe that within them they have their solutions. They just haven't had an environment and a coach that believed in them to have it come out. Number four, avoid jumping and telling them your solution. You're probably either a successful manager or a successful rep, and too many times managers are super reps. They go out and they try to do the deal for the salespeople. Tell them what I would do, what you ought to do, instead of helping them learn on their own. And finally, explore options and accountability with questions. Keep asking questions and keep holding them accountable. So that's around the skill set. Number two is around the mindset, shifting the mindset. The conversation with yourself as a manager. Become aware of what you say to yourself in these 5 areas. What are you really thinking about that person before you walk into that coaching session, or before you go ride with them, or before you have a phone call? Do I believe that person can be successful? Or have I figured they're average, they'll always be average, they're not going to make it, and I'm communicating that? Initiate that same discussion with your coaches. Coach up. Have a conversation with your manager about why you're doing your job, what you want to accomplish. And finally, stretch your salespeople's belief boundaries, as Bruce talked about. So as we wrap up today, it's really about, it says, peering inside people's lives to help them identify and rewrite the stories they tell to themselves. It's taking those stories that I can or I can't and shifting more of those to I can. I can call on these people. I can sell this product. I can be more successful. It's building the belief in addition to building their skills. As we wrap up today, I want to thank you for being with us. Hopefully we've shared a few ideas you can go back and use practically with your organization. We thank you in advance also for turning in that worksheet. We've got Ron and Will and Bruce and myself available. Again, we'll do a drawing here this afternoon, and we'll contact you. Be delighted to give $200 to the charity of your choice. So thank you for being with us. Have a good rest of the day.